What's up, guys? Today is June 19th, 2021. Happy Juneteenth to everybody. It's a great day in America. And today, on our NBA News and Analytic Commentary episode, we're going to be taking a look at the 76ers versus Hawks Game 6, the Clippers versus Jazz Game 6, and taking a look at the Game 7 of the Bucks and Nets series in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center tonight. We're going to start with the 76ers and Hawks Game 6. The 76ers were able to win this game and force a Game 7 on home court, which will be played on Monday. And this game, the Hawks were winning 51-47 at half, except the 76ers were able to come back thanks to Joel Embiid and Seth Curry. Now, Embiid, he was dunked over towards the end of the third quarter. He was dunked over. And he was out for a few minutes. I mean, he was still conscious, except you could just tell that something was up, and he still played the rest of the game, but that may be a minor injury or just a mechanical error to his game that he may have to play through in Game 7. And Ben Simmons is just continuing to play amazing defense, but that's about it. He's scared to shoot the ball, or he just simply can't shoot the ball at the free throw line, or just in general. So I believe Game 7 is a prove-it game for Ben Simmons. If the 76ers lose this game on home court, which, by the way, both teams are 1-2 in home when they're on home court, like this game was played in Atlanta and the 76ers won. But if Ben Simmons cannot help the 76ers win Game 7, I think he's out of there in the offseason. And I still think there's a good chance he may be, even if they win Game 7, but especially if they lose. Because in my opinion, when you have a top 2 center in the league in Joel Embiid, you need a shooter that isn't named Seth Curry, who usually comes off the bench or is barely a starter. You need a solid impact shooter who's going to play at least 35 minutes a game, who can open up the post for Joel Embiid. And Ben Simmons, who's considered Embiid's sidekick, just cannot do that. So that's why I feel like the 76ers team, they're a good team, they're a quality basketball team, but they're not a team that can win a championship in the modern NBA with Ben Simmons on their team if they're going to have Joel Embiid. And they're going to have to get rid of one of them at some point, and I believe that player is going to be Ben Simmons, because Joel Embiid does fit in the modern NBA. He can still shoot decently for a center, and I believe overall he's just a good player. He's an amazing player, except he just needs to learn how to come in better when it's clutch time. Because if he did, then this series would be over. Like, they should have won Game 5. They probably could have won Game 4, and they really just gave up Game 1 on home court. Now, Trae Young played amazing. He dropped over 35 points, over 11 assists. I'm very proud of his performance, and I feel like that he is putting one of the best playoff performances in his first 10 playoff games ever. It's definitely top 5 right up there with Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Magic Johnson, Luka Doncic. I mean, he's up there with them. We also had a great game by Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, their rookie. He came in huge at the free throw line towards the end of the game, and he just had a solid game overall. Now, Atlanta, I love their crowd tonight, and it was very unfortunate that they couldn't win, because I'm not showing any bias in these videos, but what I hope is that the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, is the Bucks and the Hawks. I don't care who wins that series if it happens, but that's what I hope happens. I hope the Hawks and the Bucks win Game 7 in both of their series. Except if I had to choose one team to win, I would choose the Bucks. I'm okay with the 76ers advancing, but I feel like if the 76ers win, whoever wins the Nets and Bucks series will be going to the NBA Finals. Because there's no way the 76ers team, and the way they're built, can defend the Brooklyn Nets. And I highly doubt that they can defend the Milwaukee Bucks in a 7-game series either. They might take 2 games for them, but that's about all I see. Maybe 3 if they get lucky. Because it's been proven both teams are 1-2 on home court and 2-1 on the road this series, making it the series overall tied 3-3. And I'm very shocked that Atlanta lost this game after being up the way they were. I mean, Seth Curry just came out fired at the end of the first half and into the second half. And I really thought Atlanta was going to win this game. I felt like Philadelphia was that team that wasn't going to be able to come back, even though, yes, they were down by 4. Atlanta had the momentum. They had the crowd. And I'm very impressed with what the 76ers did. But this series should have been over by now. I mean, the 76ers, if there was any game they could have won, it definitely was Game 5. And they could have won Game 1 as well. I mean, it's really disappointing. They're such an inconsistent team. They remind me of the Clippers, except the Clippers are on a hot streak right now. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But yes, I'm impressed with the 76ers. I'm not impressed with Ben Simmons. He plays great defense, but half the time he fouls them. And he just seems to be struggling. I mean, he said that he wouldn't post on Twitter during this series. And then after Game 6, where he only scores 6 points, he goes on Twitter and he posts himself talking about how he's going to grind and stuff like that. And you can wait until you win Game 7. Win Game 7 on home court, and then you can do that, Ben Simmons. But I do not like you doing that. I understand you have a social media platform, and you can post whatever you want. I don't have a problem with the post. I just have a problem with the timing of the post. I mean, you need to be in the gym working on shooting, and I honestly believe you're a half-decent shooter. You could see that before the season when you were working out. Just during the NBA game, you're too scared to shoot it. I mean, that's just not optimal for your team. It's not optimal for your franchise, and it's holding your franchise back. I mean, if you could just be a 3-and-D player or even just an offense and defense player, this team, I believe, could be finals contenders. And technically they are, but I do not see them getting out of this Eastern Conference. And if they somehow do, I definitely don't see them winning the NBA Finals, whether it's against the Phoenix Suns or the Los Angeles Clippers. And that's the game they're going to be getting into next. Game 6 of the Utah Jazz versus Los Angeles Clippers series. In Los Angeles, this is by far the biggest game in franchise history for the Clippers. They were down 2-0 for the second time in a row in a playoff series. They lost the first 2 games in Utah. They were able to win games 3 and 4 at home, and they stole a game in Utah in Game 5, which gave them a 3-2 series lead coming into this game. Now, what do I see in this Clippers team? I honestly think that right now they're playing better than the Phoenix Suns were. And I understand they didn't get a sweep like the Suns did. And I believe the Suns can beat them. I'm rooting for the Suns, except this Clippers team is on fire right now. They have a ton of momentum, and Kawhi Leonard was out again today. And whenever they start their series against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix on Monday, I doubt he'll be able to play, as well as Chris Paul, because Chris Paul is out indefinitely due to the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. We don't know when he'll be back, but he'll definitely be back for the series. But if I'm a Suns fan, I would have rooted for this series to go into a Game 7. That way, it's 2 extra days for Chris Paul to add to his total days of being in a quarantine and following the health and safety protocols, except unfortunately for them, the Clippers won this game. Now, Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley were listed as questionable before the game started. Both of them played, and both of them were not at full strength, but Donovan Mitchell still played very well. I was still pleased with his performance considering the circumstances. But the Jazz were up 72-50 at half. Jordan Clarkson looked like Michael Jordan the first half of the game, and then it just all fell apart. I mean, there was a meme about the Clippers not being able to make it past the second round, and they won this game. And they did make it past the second round for the first time in franchise history. That's right. They'll be in the Western Conference Finals for the first time in over their 50-year history of being an organization. And as you see, number 14, Terrace Mann, he had a huge performance, as well as Paul George. He dropped 27 today instead of 37 like he did in Game 5. But Playoff P is back. That's the real Playoff P that I know, and that's the true player that Paul George can be while Kawhi Leonard is out. You wouldn't have even realized that he was out with the way this Clippers team performed, especially in the second half. They have all the momentum on their side right now. What I like to call a gangster sweep. They're down 2-0, and they won 4 games in a row. So they swept the rest of the series in 6. And Terrace Mann, like I said, he dropped 39 points. Terrace Mann. The role players for the Los Angeles Clippers, they have one of, if not the most depth in the entire NBA. I would argue the Suns have great depth, and that's who they're playing in the Western Conference Finals. And I'm excited to see who's going to win that series. I really think it's a toss-up because both of these teams have a ton of momentum. And I love the way both of these teams are playing right now. And it looks like the gamble for the LA Clippers has paid off because they tanked the last 2 games of the season against the worst teams in the league, in the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who statistically and record-wise are the 2 worst teams in the league. They tanked those 2 games. That way they wouldn't have to play the Lakers, unless if they made the Western Conference Finals. They gambled, and it paid off because the Suns beat the Lakers in 6 in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. So, while the Los Angeles Lakers are home, this may be the first time this has ever happened when both teams made the playoffs. But when the Lakers are home, going to Cancun or something like that, the Clippers are in Phoenix and in Los Angeles fighting for a spot in the NBA Finals. Now, they have came a very long way, a very far way. And I think you can argue that this season being slightly shorter and not having not enough rest time has benefited the Clippers because of the amount of depth that they have compared to the rest of the NBA. I mean, they also, not only do they have Terrence Mann, but they have Ben Zubac, DeMarcus Cousins, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and then, of course, they have the two-headed monster in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And they unfortunately did trade Lou Williams to the Atlanta Hawks, who, in my opinion, wanted to be a Clipper for life, but I understand basketball is a business, and I'm just proud of this Clippers team. So, Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals is set on Monday night. It'll be between the LA Clippers and Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. Now, we're going to get into tonight's game, Game 7 of the Brooklyn Nets versus Milwaukee Bucks series in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Now, Kyrie Irving is ruled out for this game. James Harden will play his 3rd game in a row, and although he's not dropping James Harden-like numbers, I mean a 16-7 stat line is decent, and it is contributing to the team. So from the Nets' sake, it's a good thing that he's playing. But it's not the typical James Harden numbers, even when he's sharing the ball with Kevin Durant. Now, if they want to win this game, KD is going to have a nice performance. I don't think he'll have to drop 49 like he did the other night, but if he does, they're definitely going to win. Joe Harris needs to step up. He really hasn't been himself in games 5 and 6. He needs to step up. Bruce Brown needs to step up like he did in game 5. And overall, I feel like if a team has an advantage in this game, it's the Nets, just because it's at home court and because it's for all the marbles, and they're by far the favorite to win the championship. And if they win this game, it can get Kyrie Irving back in the Eastern Conference Finals healthy, then I don't think there's going to be anything stopping them, unfortunately. I don't feel like the Clippers or the Phoenix Suns could beat them. I feel like they could give a fighting chance, and I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see that happening when the Brooklyn Nets are at full strength. If one member of the big 3 is gone, I think they have a chance. But what do the Milwaukee Bucks need to do? Well, PJ Tucker played amazing defense against Kevin Durant in Game 4. Now, he can guard him for some of the game, but I feel like Giannis needs to step up and guard Kevin Durant. PJ Tucker just needs to play his PJ Tucker defense on whoever he guards, whether it's James Harden, Joe Harris, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, whoever he's guarding, he needs to play good defense. Chris Middleton, he's going to need to step up and be the number 2 man like he supposedly is, and most of the time can be. Drew Holiday, he's going to have to be a little bit higher than a role player. He's going to have to be a number 3 who can get 15, 16 points. And they're going to need to have some momentum for the majority of this game if they want to win in Brooklyn, which I believe they can do, but they're going to have to work for. And this has just been an amazing series. It looked like even without James Harden in the beginning of the series, whenever he got injured in Game 1, it looked like the Nets were just going to steamroll over the Bucks, but they have came back. They've shown strength and triumph, and I am excited to watch this Game 7. By far, the most anticipated game of the NBA playoffs, in my opinion. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who is going to win? Will it be the Brooklyn Nets or the Milwaukee Bucks? If you like this video, please consider subscribing to help out the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Peace.